court, and Billie Jean deals with it.
Once a poor girl who had to scrimp and save every penny for a cheap $8 racket. Yet, only a few decades later, the entire world held its breath watching her on the court before 90 million spectators, a battle that was not just tennis, but one that would determine the fate of women in sports. But behind the glory, shadows lurked a terrifying injury that nearly buried her career, societal prejudice that forced her to fight off the court, and a sudden dark secret that exploded, dragging her reputation and all her endorsement deals to the abyss. Amidst that storm, Billie Jean stood firm, daring to expose the truth about herself, accepting the cost of living authentically. From poverty, pain, and scandal, to power and a stature that commands global respect, what mysterious strength ultimately transformed Billie Jean King into the immortal legend of women's sports? Let's turn the glorious pages of history about one of the greatest female athletes in the world of tennis. The girl who couldn't afford a racket. Can you believe it? One of the greatest sports icons of the 20th century started as a skinny girl with small hands, standing at the edge of a cheap public court and with a borrowed racket. But that was Billie Jean King. On November 22, 1943, when Billie Jean Moffett was born in Long Beach, California, no one could have predicted that the child of an ordinary family would become the one to shake the world of sports. Her father was a firefighter, and her mother a full-time homemaker. Their house was simple, even somewhat cramped, with warm family dinners that were always seasoned with discipline and a hard work ethic. In such a family, there was nothing flashy, yet, sometimes, great light germinates in the most peaceful, small corners. In young Billie Jean's mind, the bright lights of big courts flickered early on like a secret she didn't fully understand herself. From a young age, Billie Jean refused to stay put. While other kids were playing, the 10-year-old was the shortstop in softball, a high-pressure position that demanded quick reflexes and an iron will. Strangely, Billie Jean played with girls 4 to 5 years older than her, yet she never flinched. Try to imagine a small girl, hair blown by the wind, wearing a glove bigger than her wrist, but with eyes that shone with the tenacity of an adult. It wasn't coincidence, it was the nature of a warrior just beginning to bloom. But life sometimes takes unexpected turns. Billie Jean's parents, who held traditional views, felt softball was too aggressive for a girl. They suggested she switch to a more feminine sport. And that small arrangement changed the history of women's sports forever. When Billie Jean was 11, she stepped onto a tennis court for the first time. Not a standard court, not an expensive club, but the public court in Long Beach, where the lines were faded and the surface was patchy. But the moment the borrowed racket first touched the ball, Billie Jean knew she had found her destiny. The feeling was simple yet magical, as if the strings had hit the exact highest note of her life's symphony. The only problem, she didn't own a racket. So Billie Jean began saving every loose change, dropping it into an old tin box. After doing odd jobs and saving her allowance, when she finally had the $8 needed, she bought the first racket of her life. $8, a sum so small no one remembers it. But for her, it was the ticket that opened the door to a grand ambition. If there were a museum dedicated to human willpower, that $8 racket would deserve a place right at the entrance. From then on, the young girl's life revolved around the sun-drenched public courts. Under the bright golden sky of the American West, Billie Jean trained diligently with Coach Clyde Walker, a man who saw something in her that no one else had: the perseverance, determination, and the healthy, rebellious spirit of a future champion. In every scorching afternoon, as the ball hit the ground, Billie Jean would ask herself, "Why can't I be the best?" That question wasn't arrogance. It was the originating flame, a kind of energy that made her stand longer, run faster, and hit more balls than anyone else at the Long Beach public courts. Despite her humble start, Billie Jean set a bold goal to one day become the #1 player in the world. That dream was so big that many thought she was delusional. But deep down, Billie Jean understood that to reach the pinnacle, she had to be more than just a girl playing tennis. She had to become a game changer. the game changer for women in sport. When Billie Jean King left her childhood with the $8 racket and the practices under the golden Long Beach sun, everything inside her was ready for a much larger journey. From those first steps on the public court, Billie Jean entered the professional world with determined eyes and legs full of energy, as if all the previous years of hardship were merely a run-up for the great leap she was about to take. That transformative phase arrived in the mid-60s. Every tournament was a milestone, every shot a statement. Billie Jean didn't just compete, she exploded. And then in 1906, a fateful moment, she won the Wimbledon women's singles title. Considered the cathedral of world tennis, that trophy didn't just place her among the top players, it catapulted Billie Jean straight to world number one. From that summit, she didn't slow down for a moment. Within a decade, from 1960 to 1975, Billie Jean King amassed 39 Grand Slam titles in her career, showcased 12 singles, 16 women's doubles, 11 mixed doubles. These numbers force others to step back in awe, for they speak not just of victory, but of a personality too strong, too distinct to be ignored. Yet for Billie Jean, winning was never the ultimate goal. When she stood on the podium, she always looked down to where women in sports still received less prize money, fewer opportunities, and less respect. And a question arose in her heart that society at the time was not ready to face. Why should female athletes be paid less than men? In 1973, she co-founded the Women's Tennis Association WTA with other players, the first organization to give women a voice in negotiating and deciding their own future. Billie Jean became the first president, and under her leadership, the WTA transformed from a group of overlooked women into a force the whole world was compelled to respect. But the moment that shook history took place on September 20th, 1973, at the Astrodome in Houston, Texas. The match was dubbed the Battle of the Sexes. Billie Jean's opponent was Bobby Riggs, a 55-year-old former men's champion who constantly declared that women were never good enough for real competition. Before 90 million viewers globally, Billie Jean King defeated him with a score of 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. It was no longer just a tennis match, it was a symbol. She later said, "I thought it would set us back 50 years if I didn't win that match." But she didn't let that happen. Billie Jean's victory didn't just illuminate the court, it illuminated the women's rights movement, becoming the spark that ignited belief for millions of women around the world. Amidst the glamour, Billie Jean maintained a very ordinary habit after big matches. She would quietly sit in the locker room and write in her diary, page after page. The slanted handwriting served as a self-reminder, "Today I fought for more than myself." That was the gentle human side hidden beneath the steel armor of a warrior. But every warrior carries scars. In the 60s and 70s, Billie Jean did not avoid painful setbacks. In 1968, she underwent surgery for a tear in her left knee cartilage, forcing her to take months off. A year later, it recurred. For many athletes, injury is the end, but Billie Jean returned stronger, with a tenacity that opponents both respected and feared. By 1981, she endured another shock, the palimony lawsuit, after her sexual orientation was publicly revealed. At that time, society was full of prejudice. Many endorsement contracts vanished. Her reputation was attacked. But Billie Jean did not bow down. She stated clearly, "I fight for myself, then I fight for others." Throughout her career, Billie Jean King achieved a win rate of over 81%, with 124 wins and 262 losses, along with 129 singles titles, a record that the world admires. What made her different was that Billie Jean didn't keep the glory to herself. She successfully campaigned for the US Open to become the first Grand Slam to offer equal prize money for men and women. She co-founded the Women's Sports Foundation to support women and girls in sports, and the world's largest women's team competition, formerly the Fed Cup, now bears her name, the Billie Jean King Cup. Among those 39 Grand Slams, 20 titles were won at Wimbledon, a record that was once solely hers. But when you look at this journey, what do you find more impressive, the trophies or the willpower that brought her to them? Billie Jean King's career is not just the story of a tennis player. It is the journey of a woman who dared to change the rules of the game and then rewrote history. The confession that cost her everything. After years of standing under the Wimbledon lights and becoming the face of the equality movement, Billie Jean King entered a phase of her personal life where the undercurrents were sometimes more ferocious than 100 kmph serve. If her career elevated her to the splendid sky of a sports icon, her marriage and subsequent scandal brought her back to the thorny ground, where she was forced to confront herself in the most stripped-down way. In 1965, Billie Jean married Larry King, not the famous talk show host, a brilliant and idealistic law student. Larry believed in Billie Jean's abilities, willing to support her financially and emotionally to pursue her career at the top. In the eyes of many, they were the golden couple of American tennis one played. One strategized, one on the court, one building the foundation behind the scenes. Every one of Billie Jean's victories had Larry's presence beyond the sideline, sometimes blended into the crowd, sometimes holding a water bottle, sometimes just quietly observing. They partnered like interlocking gears, supporting each other as she climbed to the world summit. But beneath the calm exterior, Billie Jean was struggling with complex emotions she couldn't name. American society at the time was too conservative, too rigid for her to acknowledge what her heart had been whispering for years. She was a pioneer on the tennis court, but in private, Billie Jean was a woman living in internal conflict between her true self and the safe role society expected. The climax occurred in 1981, when Billie Jean's life took a turn she certainly wasn't mentally prepared for. A woman she had been romantically involved with, Marilyn Barnett, filed a palimony lawsuit, publicly exposing a private relationship Billie Jean had never confirmed to the media. In that moment, the outside world seemed to collapse. Billie Jean King, a national sports icon who had inspired millions of women, suddenly became the focus of a media storm. Major newspapers ran red headlines, and TV shows discussed it endlessly. Some were shocked, some criticized, some turned their backs, while Billie Jean stood at the epicenter of a scandal she never thought she would face. And she chose to face it head-on. Billie Jean became one of the first top athletes in American history to come out as gay under public pressure, at a time when that meant losing contracts, losing reputation, losing fans, and even losing friends. That courage came at a very high price. Many businesses immediately terminated her endorsement contracts. Her income plummeted. Some articles even described Billie Jean as a fallen idol, but they didn't understand that sometimes. The fall itself is the beginning of a truly free journey. Larry King, though no longer maintaining the marriage, demonstrated incredible composure and respect. The two did not immediately divorce, but continued to be friends and teammates in the social projects they both believed in. Larry became a crucial part of Billie Jean's journey to self-discovery, not as a husband, but as someone who understood that she needed to be herself. And Billie Jean, despite the pain, despite the exhaustion, she did not retreat. The fighting spirit that had carried her through knee injuries, that had helped her defeat Bobby Riggs before 90 million spectators, once again kept her standing tall in the eye of the storm. There were mornings she woke up feeling as if the whole world was judging her. But Billie Jean chose to continue to talk, to compete, to fight for women and for the LGBTQ+ community she unintentionally became a symbol for. The 1981 scandal did not destroy Billie Jean King. It sharpened her. It made her stronger, clearer about herself and what she was fighting for. And strangely, it was when she lost the most that Billie Jean found the most genuine relationships. Not long after, she met Alana Kloss, who would later become her life partner, companion, and co-founder of many sports and social projects. The very thing Billie Jean had hidden throughout her youth suddenly became the most beautiful, clearest part of her adult life. Marriage, scandal, and the truth about herself, all wrapped up into a dramatic chapter no less intense than any Wimbledon final. If the previous chapters showed us a Billie Jean King fighting on the court, this one exposed the woman fighting herself and societal prejudice. And in both battles, she chose the harder path, living authentically. A legend is not only made by victories, but by how that person stands firm even when life tries to push them down. Billie Jean King did that, and that's what truly makes a great figure. Billie Jean King steps onto the board of money and power. When Billie Jean King left the court, Many thought she would settle into a quiet life, but they were wrong. Billie Jean's second life was not about lightning-fast shots, but about bold financial decisions, contrarian investments, and a unique style of luxury, discreet, profound, yet full of power. Leaving the court didn't mean leaving the spotlight. The only difference, the lights now shone on her in the conference rooms of sports corporations, at fundraising dinners, and in closed-door meetings deciding the future of major federations. And it was in that elite world that Billie Jean built a new empire. After becoming one of the first female athletes to earn over $100,000 a year in the 1970s, Billie Jean began to strategically shift her finances. She didn't buy supercars or diamond watches. She bought influence. One of Billie Jean's boldest ventures was her investment in the Los Angeles Dodgers, a globally branded baseball team. Outsiders might only see this as a luxurious investment, but those who understand the sports business know owning a stake in the Dodgers means you step into the boardroom with the most powerful figures on the West Coast of the US. And Billie Jean, the female athlete, who once had to save every penny for an $8 racket, now sat among billionaires and major corporation chairmen, discussing national sports strategy. Then came Angel City FC, the women's soccer team creating a buzz in the NWSL. Billie Jean isn't just an investor, she's one of the founding faces. She appears at the stadium in a striking purple blazer, standing alongside Natalie Portman, Serena Williams, and Eva Longoria, powerful women from Hollywood and sports. Photos of her in the VIP box, a radiant face, a sharp smile, have become a symbol of the new generation of female power in American sports. Billie Jean's real estate also reflects that lifestyle, luxurious but unostentatious. A home in Manhattan, where she spends much time working with the USTA, one in Los Angeles, where she and Ilana Kloss host sports organizations, friends, and colleagues. She doesn't own a 20-room mansion or an ocean view pool like wealthy golfers. But every one of Billie Jean's homes shares a common thread: quietness, refinement, and black and white photos commemorating the moment she stood on the Wimbledon court in 1970. There's an interesting moment at a fundraising auction. The neon blue blazer Billie Jean wore at the US Open opening ceremony sold for nearly $50,000. The buyer, a young entrepreneur, didn't buy it for the jacket, but for the story attached to it. That shows that Billie Jean's allure is not in material possessions, but in her legacy. Billie Jean's post-retirement lifestyle is truly quiet luxury, not flashy but elegant, not loud but impossible to ignore. She always appears with the composure of someone who knows exactly where she stands in history, but chooses a calm demeanor rather than walking with resounding footsteps. Every morning, Billie Jean usually reads the news, reviews sports reports, or research materials on gender equality policies. Ilana Kloss says she has a habit of making notes in a small notebook, just like Billie Jean used to journal after every big match. The difference is, the pages now aren't about serves or double strategy, but about budgets for community sports programs, funding opportunities for girls from disadvantaged areas, or plans to enhance the quality of the Billie Jean King Cup in the coming decade. And when she steps into national events, from Los Angeles boardrooms to New York galas, you can clearly feel that Billie Jean is not just respected for what she did in the past. She is respected for what she is still doing. For Billie Jean King, money was never the end, it was always the starting point. And that is why her wealth is not only measured in dollars, but in the changes she has sown into the American sports system. The past her prime legend and the comeback at 80. There are people whose light never fades, no matter how much time passes. Billie Jean King is one of the few in her 80s, when many are peacefully resting in the embrace of their grandchildren, slowing down after a long life. She is the opposite, still appearing, still speaking, still flying everywhere, still standing before large audiences as if her life's mission is not yet complete. The current image of Billie Jean is no longer the athlete with lightning-fast steps or serves that shook the court, but the aura remains the same. Her eyes are as sharp as ever. Her voice still carries an energy that makes the entire room more attentive after just a few opening sentences. She doesn't need to win any more titles. Her presence alone is enough to command respect. In recent years, Billie Jean King has dedicated most of her time to social activities related to gender equality, fairness in sports, and programs supporting youth. She has become a mentor, a storyteller, someone standing behind the change rather than at the center of it. But this shift has not diminished her influence. On the contrary, it has made her a more enduring, experienced, and notably more weighty voice. A typical workday for Billie Jean might now begin with a meeting with international sports organizations, followed by a talk with students at a major university, and then a flight to New York or Los Angeles for a fundraising gala. Looking at her schedule, young people are sometimes surprised how can someone in their 80s maintain such a rapid, demanding pace. But for Billie Jean, it's not an obligation, it's a joy. She always says that slowing down makes her feel like she's moving away from the purpose life gave her. One of the most moving moments for fans is when Billie Jean steps onto the Arthur Ashe Stadium court at the US Open as an honored guest. The lights shine on her face, and tens of thousands of people rise in applause. There is no racket in her hand, no grueling 5-set matches, but the respect for her is deeper than at any point in her career. People don't stand up for a Grand Slam champion. They stand up for the person who changed the face of tennis, who gave women the opportunity, the voice, and the fairness no one dared to demand before. In her private life, Billie Jean King lives simply but warmly. She and Alana Kloss, her life partner, teammate, and companion, have created a peaceful family that is also an energy station, helping Billie Jean continue her journey. They work together on many sports projects, raise funds for community organizations, and sometimes just spend time together, watching old matches or reading thank you letters from 12 and 13-year-old girls who were inspired by Billie Jean. Billie Jean King's future, even at an age others call twilight, unfolds in a surprising way. She has no intention of stopping. New social projects, youth training programs, and plans to promote gender equality are still expanding. She works with the passion as if she still has half a lifetime ahead. And perhaps the thing that sets her apart most is the belief that every day she wakes up is still an opportunity to make the world a little better, even if it's just by a millimeter. Looking back at Billie Jean King's entire journey, one realizes that her legacy lies not just in the 39 Grand Slams, or the win against Bobby Riggs, or the world #1 ranking. The true legacy lies in the changes she created in society's consciousness, in the hearts of young female athletes, and in the structure of the global sports landscape. That legacy does not fade with time, it only grows. And if you ask Billie Jean King how she wants people to remember her, the answer would probably be very simple, not as a tennis legend, but as the person who opened the door for others to walk through. Billie Jean King's life is proof of one truth: sunset is not always the end. For people like her, it's just a different kind of light, deeper, warmer, but still brilliantly beautiful in its own way. Billie Jean King has completed a journey few have achieved, from a young girl with an $8 racket to an icon who changed the entire face of world sports. She fought with willpower, persistence, and the conviction that fairness is worth risking everything for. And even though the titles are in the past, the light from what Billie Jean created still spreads in the present. Her journey reminds us that true strength lies in how a person rises after every challenge and dares to open the door for others to walk through. Thank you for following the story of the woman who made the whole world look at itself. We are not responsible if you misunderstand or misapply this content. Please exercise your own judgment, verify the information, and consume it selectively. Enjoyed it? Give us a like, comment, share, or subscribe to the channel. That fuels our fire to tell more incredible stories about other tennis superstars.